Welcome to the show both feared and revered by man and beast, the heliosblog. Today, well, guess who won the United States election?
The reason she's alone is because she's difficult.
Women are not accepting the bare minimum.
Women fuck men they respect.
All the women who say things like, I'm strong, independent, I don't need no man, like, y'all impress me.
Women just gaslight each other and say what they want to hear.
This will truly be the golden age of America.
Here we go.
If you don't mind me saying this, is a little cracked because Trump is currently won 4 of the 7 and leading in the other 3. Your response?
Yeah, no doubt about it. What I got wrong in this election is that I thought, even though I've been critiquing the Democratic Party, certainly since the Bernie Sanders movement, I thought that January 6th and the overturning of Roe versus Wade and Trump's manifestly authoritarian tendencies, as evidenced by the people who were closest with him in the White House, I thought it would be enough to overcome those problems on the Democratic side. And I was absolutely dead wrong. So a couple of problems specifically with Kamala's campaign. I think there was way too much spending time with Liz Cheney, spending time with Mark Cuban, way too little time spending time with Bernie Sanders, spending time with Sean Fain, who's the president of the UAW. And in general, Pierce, something I agreed with from your intro is the last guy who did the best with the coalition that is fleeing the Democratic Party right now is Bernie Sanders. And Democrats did everything they possibly could to block him from not only ascending to, be the Democratic nominee, but to block him from having any significant influence in the party. He offered a competing vision that could actually combat the fascism that you see.
No frickin' way. Yes, what we need is more communism. Very good.
With Donald Trump. Just talking
Disaster.
about fascism, talking about how bad Donald Trump is clearly not enough to get the job done. And so we have the results that we have.
Yeah, Dan Crenshaw, I spoke to President Trump this morning, just rang him on his phone, and to my surprise, he picked up. And I think even he was a bit taken aback by the sheer scale of this victory. It's not now beyond the realms of fantasy that he could win the White House, the Republicans win the Senate, they win the House of Representatives, and he may end up winning the popular vote as well as Electoral College. An absolute clean sweep. And you can only conclude from that this is an utter repudiation of all the attack lines that his opponents have been throwing on him for the past year.
Exactly.
And I would include in that the weaponization of the legal system against Trump, the attempts to take his life from 2 assassination attempts and so on. You put it all together, and this is a gigantic 2 fingers from the American electorate to those who said Trump can't be president again.
Yeah, it really is. It surprised a lot of us. Look, if you've been asking me for predictions for a while now, and I've said every single time, if you make me make a prediction, I'm going to say it's a clean sweep, but it's close. And turns out, I was right, but I was also wrong. I didn't think he was going to win every swing state, and now he's looking like he's going to win every swing state. Looks like we're probably going to have a majority of about 7 in the House. A small improvement over 4. The Senate's looking way better than we thought it was going to look. I'm actually I'm so frustrated with ourselves because we should have 2 Republican seats in Arizona. We should have 2 Republican seats in Georgia. That would put us at 60 votes. We would have a real majority for the first time in, maybe ever. It really is something. And responding to what Crystal said, I just think it's funny because my greatest fear.
It's the woke chickens have come to roost, is what happened.
As a Republican, is that when we lose, we learn the wrong lessons. And the wrong lessons, as a Republican, speaking just as a Republican, she can have her opinions as a Democrat, but my fears have always been that when we lose, we all get together, we do an internal firing squad, and we say it's because we weren't right-wing enough, and we alienated our rightest of the right voters. That is the wrong message, because the way we won this time and the way we keep majorities in the House, it's those majority makers, it's those moderates, Trump won women and white women in this election. He did massive improvements in the Latino and Black voters. You don't do that by running to the right. You do that by by constantly hitting the same message about the economy and immigration and just this common sense stuff that people are really worried about. And so, look, don't get me wrong, I kind of hope Democrats learn the wrong lessons here because I'd like to keep winning. But I'd be curious for her to unpack that a little bit more because it doesn't make sense to me. You know, when Democrats were crushing it, really quick, when Democrats were crushing Republicans was in the 90s. That was in the 90s, and they were a very different party back then. That's all I'll say.
Yeah, well, the world was very different, and neoliberalism was absolutely ascendant there then. Now we're in a post-neoliberal world. And so what I'm not talking about a shift to the left. I'm talking about a shift top versus bottom. You know, Trump has his version of fake populism. He's got his villains. He's got his scapegoats, immigrants, cultural elites. Bernie Sanders, when he ran in the Occupy movement, when they were ascendant, talked about the 1%, talked about the millionaires and billionaires, talked about corporate greed, talked about unfettered capitalism. That's the shift that I'm talking about. And we know that it was effective because that Bernie to Trump pipeline, that was real. People who were voting for Bernie Sanders, who were Latinos, who were working class, who were Joe Rogan bros, who were Joe Rogan himself, have now, when faced with the choice between Trumpism and neoliberalism, chosen Trumpism. When faced with the choice between Trumpism and Bernie Sanders left populism, chose left populism every time.
Okay, let me bring in Cenk, because Cenk, I'm going to be honest with you.
I get that analysis a little bit better, yeah.
Yeah, Cenk, I woke up this morning and I actually thought of you. I felt sorry for you because I thought you'd come on my show now, given the sheer scale of
Hilarious.
devastating victory and devastating defeat for the Democrats. I mean, it is hard to imagine a worse morning to be Cenk Uygur.
I'm great. I come on your show with the same swagger I always do. So the reality, Piers, is unfortunately I was right all along. I told you that Joe Biden was feeble and ridiculous, and I told you they should have done a real convention and a real primary, and they didn't do it. They should have picked their strongest candidate. Now, look, Crystal's 100% right, and I need everybody to understand this is the most important fact about politics today in America. It is not left versus right. That is an old way of thinking. It is populist versus establishment. And the establishment loses every time now. And the reason that they can't see it is because everyone on TV, everyone in the Democratic leadership is the establishment. So they can't look at themselves in the mirror and go, oh, it turns out people hate me. They need to go in a populist direction. It is super obvious. They'll probably never see it. Next time around, the main thing is we've got to reach the Democratic voters, go around mainstream media who lie to them 24/7. Right now, this morning, they're doing copium on MSNBC, talking about how white women ruined this for them, or demographic groups didn't show up. It's absurd. It's absurd. You lost because you're a bunch of elitists and you don't even realize it.
But I would also say, Cenk, and I'm sorry to single you out, but you are the person here who's done a lot of this on my show. I do think the constant over-demonization of Trump, when people were calling him a fascist, a neo-Nazi, the new Hitler, all this, I kept warning people on the left, this is going to backfire. Most average Americans do not think Trump is...
They don't think that.
They did not see in his first term of office a fascist at work. Yes, they thought January 6th was awful. We all did. And it should never have happened. And that's more playing, to be honest with you, to Trump's refusal to ever accept losing. You know, I just watched the movie about him that came out, and it's crystal clear. This has always been in his DNA. Never accept defeat. And that was a consequence of that mindset. But he wasn't a fascist in his first term. Yes, he says stuff from, he shoots from the hip verbally all the time. And he says stuff which sometimes sounds awful. But he didn't actually behave like a fascist. And so when you tell the American people constantly, rather than telling us what Kamala Harris might do with the country, which she was completely incapable of articulating, by the way, and ducked the press, didn't do press conferences, blah, blah, blah. But when you constantly try and frame Trump, you know, I was at the Madison Square Garden rally, first one I'd been to. That was not a Nazi rally.
No.
It had a load of Jewish people sitting in the crowd. It had Israel banners all around the sides. It had a Holocaust survivor at the front. So when you try and frame it, as some on the left did, as a neo-Nazi rally and go back as MSNBC did, to a rally in 1939 in Madison Square Garden that was a neo-Nazi rally, you are losing the plot. It is not the way to beat Trump. It is the way to fuel Trump and to get him to be more popular. Do you know? Think I was right?
So you have to draw an important distinction here. In fact, two distinctions. So first of all, not only did I never call him a neo-Nazi or Hitler, I called him fascist, and there is a giant difference. But last night, Representative Steve Cohen from Tennessee was on the Young Turks as we were doing election coverage, and he called him Hitler, and I said, don't do that. Because Hitler killed 13 million people. We're not anywhere near there. I mean, this morning, Joy Reid's talking about how Florida's a fascist state. What are you talking about? I'm going to go into Miami a little bit later in this week. It's ridiculous. But in terms of why I call him a fascist and why I think it's right, Piers, is because he tried to overturn the election in 2020, and he did fake elector plot. He planned a coup, etc. And that's what fascists do. But it doesn't matter because he won this election fair and square. So we're back to democracy. I'm happy to say clean slate. Let's see what he does. But I think, unfortunately, I'm going to be proven right about him as well. Because, yes, he's a much better fake populist, and the Democrats still don't get it. They're bragging about how they raised $1 billion and how all the corporate CEOs are on their side and all the Cheneys are on their side. That is the worst strategy you could possibly imagine. It's not that Trump won this nearly as much as the Democrats lost this election. They don't get it. Stop bragging about how CEOs love you and how you raised $1 billion, and that is corruption defined. Now, when it comes to Trump, look, guys, let's all hope that I'm wrong, but my guess is you're all going to be deeply disappointed. He's going to rob the place blind. Elon's going to rob the place blind. They're not real populists. They're going to give corporate tax cuts. They're going to do all the things that Democrats do. They're just going to be more clever about it. Their number one priority is going to be giant corporate
big
tax
surprise,
cuts,
yep.
corporate deregulation. So if I'm right about it, you guys will see he was never a populist. He was only looking out for himself.
All right, Vinny, you must be absolutely thrilled today because everything you've hoped for. This is like Thanksgiving and Christmas just came a little early, right?
Piers, good morning. Piers, it's always good when your guy wins, and I mean, you spoke with Donald Trump today. I know he's your friend, and it feels good. I know you're not supposed to say it, Piers, but we told you so, okay? And you guys were talking about this, Hitler. Like, think about what the left did. You diminished the weight behind the name Hitler, okay? So now this morning, everybody on the left is like, oh my God, Hitler won, and the Nazis are celebrating, all right? But Piers, people like Schenck and all these left, MSNBC, all the hags from freaking The View, they should be and celebrating. So at least they're going to have something to talk about for the next 4 years, okay? Because these people have no substance. It's just Trump is the bad man. Watch us, listen to us. And I think it's a great day for America, Piers. And I just, he said last night, and I wrote this down, that God spared his life for a reason, and that's to save the country. Because let's not forget really quick, Piers, how we got here, okay? Trump was supposed to be dead. That assassin's bullet, Piers, and whoever that sniper assassin was going right for his head, okay? Because as we know, when it comes to assassins, Piers, they want to put out a freaking message. When they shot JFK, they shot him in his throat, and then they shot him in his head. That sends a message to the world, don't mess with us. We're the deep state, we're the establishment, you don't do that. God spared his life, Piers. If he was dead, Biden would still be in right now. That walking zombie would still be the president. He would win by a landslide, and they'd probably use the 25th Amendment to get him out to have Kamala. She had no business being here. I actually feel bad for her, Piers. She had 7 days to try to sell the world on her being the savior.
Literally.
It didn't work. God bless America, Piers, and thank God for Donald Trump. And I'm ecstatic, Piers.
You know what they say, God, guns, and Trump.
Besides myself. It's amazing.
I mean, Crystal, talking to Kamala Harris, I do think it's pretty extraordinary she hasn't conceded yet. I mean, to be fair to Hillary Clinton, she did concede, in the early hours in 2016. Kamala Harris has had one of the biggest drubbings in modern political history anywhere and still hasn't conceded. We're told she may make an address conceding at 6 o'clock tonight, Eastern time, which seems to me way too late. Why is she not? I mean, given all the fury from Democrats about Trump never conceding the election last time, surely the right thing to do would be for her to concede immediately, wouldn't it?
Sure. We know she's going to concede. No one is seriously considering she's going to, as vice president, not do the electoral certification, et cetera. So I have no doubt she's going to concede. Democrats are going to say it was free and fair, and they're all going to move forward. I just want to say one thing to Vinny in response to this conversation about fascism, Hitler, etc. I think liberals are largely right about the threat that Trump represents. I think they're largely right when they describe his ideology accurately as fascism. I think it's important we also remember where that conversation
but the American
about
people don't agree
Trump's
with you.
comments.
Yeah, Crystal, the problem is.
Hold on, let me just say.
I would really.
No.
Let me just say.
I would really urge. I would
Crystal,
really
you can't
urge.
get away
Hang
with
on,
that.
Vinny. Hang on. I would really urge liberals. Look, I am a liberal. Right, I know Cenk never believes me, but I am. Personally, I've known him a long time, but I'm not a natural conservative. Never have been. When I go on the 5 on Fox, they put me in the liberal chair. I joked with Harold about it the other day. They put me in his seat, right? So there's a reason they do that. I used to run a newspaper in Britain, which was lent to the left. So I really am. I'm more of a Bill Maher kind of guy when it comes to my politics. But I honestly urge liberals, wake the hell up. If you keep calling him a fascist,
I'm not arguing
if you keep calling him a fascist when he's won the popular vote, you're basically calling the majority of. Hang on, hang on. Let me finish. Let me finish my point.
How are you supposed to describe
hang
an
on, Crystal.
right-wing ideology? It's fascism.
Yes, keep talking. That's we can't allow the people to talk.
Let me finish my point, which is this.
You guys cut me off, and then I don't get to finish.
If he wins the popular vote, as well as everything else, what you're doing when you continue to call him a fascist, you're basically saying that all these Americans who voted for him are supporting a fascist and are therefore themselves fascists. Do you not get that?
But let's make a distinction here. I'm talking about accurately describing reality, a reality that was described by not liberals, by his chief of staff, John Kelly, a lifelong Republican, by Mike Mattis, right? But ask Mike Pence how he feels about Donald Trump and his authoritarian tendencies in office. That's different. Accurately describing reality, which I think we all have an obligation to do, is different from arguing about how I think they should most effectively go about defeating that fascist ideology as embodied by Donald Trump. And on that, I agree with you. I think they go about it all the wrong ways by not offering an alternative vision that accurately identifies the problems in American society as unfettered capitalism, corporate greed, etc. So, in terms of the electoral piece, I think you're correct. But, just looking at the definition of fascism, looking at the people who served with him, who know him way better than I do, who say, yeah, I think that he fits the definition. I can't lie and not accurately describe reality because that would be dishonest to my audience.
Let me come to Dan. I want to come to Dan. I want to play, first of all, this is a little mashup of how liberals responded as the news became clear last night.
The Fox News decision desk can now officially project that Donald Trump will become the 47th president of the United States.
You know that old saying about how insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result?
I got it totally wrong. I thought Kamala Harris would win, and I believe she would win comfortably. I thought it would be over quite quickly.
You said, I guarantee Donald Trump will never be president again.
Yeah.
Right. You're wrong.
Well, I got wrong. It's competition for sure.
They're still outstanding. Why isn't Philadelphia counting votes? I want to know what is going on. What the hell is going on right now?
I'm gonna cry tears, dude. I'm gonna cry tears. You're gonna own me so hard, dude.
It shouldn't be easier to beat a black woman, or maybe it should.
He hasn't faced a whole slew of other charges, and yet, with all of that, he is going back to the White House.
It's not the elite that's going to pay the price. It's people who woke up this morning with a dream and are going to bed with a nightmare.
Dan,
disaster.
Amusing though it will be to a lot of conservatives to watch all those liberal tears and all their dreams dying before our eyes. The challenge for Donald Trump.
The second time after Hillary. Man, it's really funny because they went even more woke the second time. They got slapped even harder the second time. No learning happened between the first and second. Where's Mitt Romney? Mitt Romney could have probably beaten Trump.
Right now, Piers.
But the challenge for Trump, and I was very encouraged actually by his speech. In fact, let me just play a little bit of his speech when he came out last night when he knew he'd won. Then I'll come to you for your response.
It was so normal and humble.
Let me just play the clip, Dan, and then I'll come to you. Hang on one sec.
Built the biggest, the broadest, the most unified coalition They've never seen anything like it in all of American history. They've never seen any young and old, men and women, rural and urban. They came from all corners, union, non-union, African American, Hispanic American, Asian American, Arab American, Muslim American. A historic realignment, uniting citizens of all backgrounds around a common core of common sense. You know, we're the party of common sense.
Dan, I thought that was a really good phrase, that the core of common sense, and the realignment, where he cited all these different ethnic groups in America who come together to basically sign up to Trump's worldview. And I do think, and liberals have not wanted to concede this point, but I've begun to detect a change in mood today, that when they try to downplay things like, for example, transgender athletes in women's sport and the very damaging impact that is having, I really think they underestimated how the majority of Americans feel about that kind of thing. That they just see it as completely unfair and an erosion of women's rights. And it's coming from a party, because Kamala Harris and Joe Biden both supported it, comes from a party who tries to portray themselves as the only party that cares about women's rights. So I think this core of common sense message that Trump had was really significant in why he won. But also, he's got a chance, and he talked in quite a unified way last night, he's got a chance to try and bring the country together. Do you think he'll take that chance?
That's a great question. There's a lot to unpack. There was a lot said in the last few minutes, and I didn't get to hit any of it. And I actually think this conversation, first of all, about left-wing populism and right-wing populism and what populism even means, I think is really interesting. I hope we keep hitting on that. It was said before, he's a fake populist. Well, I hope so, because populism is crap. I mean, populism is the art of telling you what you want to hear instead of the truth. That is populism. Yeah, I mean, of course. Dan
is the least happy in this
populism
panel.
is all the time. The least what?
Dan is establishment.
Oh my lord.
Republican. He hates it.
I like his eye patch.
Whatever that means.
Pirate.
So he wanted to start more wars. So he's the least happy on this entire panel.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I'm talking about.
I'm feeling. It's funny because I'm feeling pretty happy right now because.
Shank, no one could be more unhappy than you, surely. Come on.
And like I've never started any wars. I'm actually the only one here who actually bothers fighting in them. So don't talk to me about war. And look, populism is just lying. Populism is just lying. Liberals just lie to people. They bribe them with their votes. That was the Kamala Harris campaign slogan. We're going to give you $25,000 if you buy a new house. We're going to forgive your student loan debts. We're going to double the child tax credit, which was a Republican idea, by the way. Like, we're just going to bribe you if you just vote for me. And you know what? Nothing in your life is your fault. It's always somebody else's fault. You're the victim.
Yes, indeed.
Because of your skin color or gender, you're the victim. And people are so tired of hearing that. I speak to a lot of high schools. And when I bring up wokeism, when I bring up this victimhood ideology, that's actually what riles these kids up, which makes me really happy. It shows me that we're on a good track in America. They are sick of hearing.
Yeah, maybe America will go back to being, what it was. Maybe.
This kind of stuff. That's what populism is. Now, maybe you have a different definition of it. You say it's against the elites, it's against the establishment. We need to be very clear about something. The Democrat Party does indeed have an establishment. You are correct about that. Nancy Pelosi orchestrated the downfall of Biden. That establishment orchestrated the insertion of Kamala Harris without any vote whatsoever. That's all true. But
anti-democratic, ultimately.
You cannot tell me there's an establishment in the Republican Party. There simply isn't. There hasn't been for a very long time. I'll do a quick thought experiment and prove it. Well, I'll do a quick thought experiment and prove it to you. You laugh.
Cue the villain laugh.
Stop laughing. It's annoying. So here's the thought experiment. I'm running in my primary.
You're it. Look in the mirror.
I can do one of two things. I can say I'm bucking the establishment or I'm for the establishment. Which one is going to get me more votes? Obviously, bucking the establishment gets me more votes. So that negates the existence of any establishment. When 4% of our conference could take down our Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy, we don't have an establishment. We don't have that unifying establishment. We never have.
He looks like a villain as he's talking.
What's the address for this establishment? How are
he kind of looks like Metal Gear. You know, like what is it? Liquid Snake? No, Big Boss.
they funded? Who are they? Who are these dark, murky people running things and using their little puppet strings to control everybody? It's not true. It's not true. And so the populism is a left-wing ideology that has infected some of the right. And yes, Donald Trump is going to do things that are pro-growth because populist tendencies tend to be anti-growth. They tend to be anti-free market, and that's bad for your children and your children's children. So let's on that real quick. And I already forgot what Pierce's question actually was. Oh,
well, it was really about. I'll tell you what it was, Dan. It was about unity and whether Trump has it in him to unify the country, given how divisive he is.
And look,
but notwithstanding that, how big
probably not
the win is, he's got a chance.
Well, I'm hopeful on that for a few reasons. One, right? Trump has had this chip on his shoulder for years after the 2020 election. And you know, we all know what that's about. But
he's not the hero the United States needed. He's the hero the United States deserved.
He's no longer running for re-election, and he had a really clean sweep. That matters a lot to the man's psyche. Another thing, he cares about his legacy. Now he doesn't have to worry about re-election. He cares more than anything else about legacy. And for him, that means America is the best at every metric that you can imagine. So, look, guys, we have 4 years of Trump already. He didn't govern as a fascist. And I'd love to hear what your definition of fascism is. I mean,
yeah, he didn't. He's not going to do it now. That would be insane. Like, as a dying king, you'll just get assassinated, right? Okay, anyway. Let's end the video there. Hit the like, hit the sub, hit all the notifications. Buy my books at bit.ly/heliosbooks. You can see a list of people that have bought it there. If you'd like me to give you some great advice, better than this wokey one from the left, just message me at theheliosblog@gmail.com. Thank you so much for listening, guys, especially if you listen to the end. I really do appreciate it. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next time.